and I'm going to do an audio analysis by Orange Are Not the Only Fruit. The novel is by Jeanette Winterson and was first published in 1985. And it's about this lesbian girl, Jeanette, who grows up in this English Pentecostal community. And through the novel, we get to know all her thoughts about growing up in this very religious community and the struggles she is facing by being a lesbian, for example. But yeah. Today we're going to, there it goes. We're going to talk about characterizations. Here and there we're going to discuss Jeanette's mother, and Elise. And then we're also going to briefly discuss the different themes in the story. We're going to comment on the style of the text, and with style I mean the different humorous devices used. And then at last we're going to briefly discuss the symbolism, and here I thought about the oranges in the text. But yeah, let's begin. And as said, we're going to first discuss characterization, and let's begin with Jeanette. Jeanette is the main character in the story, and she's also the narrator of this novel. She's quite kind and polite, but she also approaches the world with this sincere seriousness from a very young age. But she also feels like nobody is really paying attention to her, because as the first quote, which is this one, as it says, once I went deaf for almost 3 months with my adenoids, and no one noticed that either. This just shows that nobody is really paying attention to her, because if they would know that she wasn't really answering when they talked to her and so on. Jeanette's mother is quite religious, which we're going to talk about later. But from her mom, she learned that she should believe and live after her religion, and she really does. Because at school, she, for example, decorates her arts and crafts with Bible texts. And Jeanette is also quite fearless. She's embracing her true self by coming out and saying she's a lesbian. And here we have the next quote, which is this one, which says, I love you almost as much as I love the Lord. And it's from the chapter Joshua. And this quote just simply shows Jeanette's sincere love and affection for Madeline, as well as her belief that she's not really doing anything wrong by loving Madeline. But when the church and the mother reacts the way they react, Jeanette says, which is the next quote, to change something you do not understand is the true nature of evil. And she's quite frustrated, and she's angry because those judging her do not really seem to understand her. And here we also have the last quote, which is this one down here, which says, if God is your emotional role model, very few human relationships will match up to it. And this is just a follow-up to all this about Jeanette beginning to doubt her beliefs and religion, because Jeanette prefaces this comment with the statement that she's not even sure God exists. And that is important because the God she grew up loving and knowing was her best friend she ever had. So in the end, she begins to doubt because she feels like religion has let her down by not saying it's okay to love a girl or love who you want to love. But yeah, that was a little bit about Jeanette. So let's move on to Jeanette's mother. Jeanette's mother is also one of the main characters in the story, but she does not develop as, for example, Jeanette does. She's very strict and very religious, and she knows what she wants. For example, we have the first quote, which is this one, which says she had never heard of mixed feelings. There were friends and there were enemies, which is from the chapter Genesis. But most obviously, there is a lack of charity in her heart that could be seen in the way she treats Jeanette. Because, as for example, she does not see that Jeanette has become deaf, for example. And the mother is also overpowered by the church and is seen incapable of loving a daughter who does not comply to her standards, you can almost say. And which is the last one. The Lord forgives and forgets, but my mother didn't. Which is said by Jeanette, where she simply just says that her mother could not forgive her by not being, perfect in her eyes to her religion, you can almost say. But yeah, let's move on because we have a lot to talk about. The next one is Elise. And Elise is quite different. She sees the world in a different way and opens Jeanette to a whole new world, especially through literature. Elise is very open-minded and she supports Jeanette during all her phases in her life. Even after that, it's clear that Jeanette is a lesbian. And therefore you can almost say that Elise is probably the kindest character within this novel. Elise is also quite religious. She's respected and member of the church, but she's quite different from the rest. She's a character who truly knows herself, and the way she supports Jeanette when Jeanette says that she's a lesbian is also very different from the others. Elise doesn't shun Jeanette out, and when Jeanette leaves the church, she meets with her, and therefore you can also see she's very open-minded to a different side of the world. And then we're briefly going to discuss the different themes in the story. The first one I have chosen is Journey to Selfhood, which here I mean that the journey Jeanette is on by becoming her true self, knowing what she wants and what she believes, and becoming herself. And even in the end of the novel, Jeanette is still trying to become comfortable with herself, with the person she is, which is so different from the person she was in the beginning. Because in the beginning, church and what her mother said was so important, and in the end, she is so different. And she, all through this novel, her journey has been difficult. She has a lot of problems with her past. She questions her belief and all about this betrayal and loneliness. So yeah, I would say that is the main theme in the story. Another one is this religion and beliefs, because it has such a big role in the novel. The chapters' names are different ways of religion. The mother is so religion. It all combines about this religion and church and how to behave and how to not to behave and what to do and so on. Therefore, I would say that religion and beliefs are also a quite significant theme in this novel. There's also use of comparison and a little bit of black comedy, you can almost say, as a style of humorous devices in this story. For example, I have this quote, which is this one. The salt beef of civilization rumbling around in the gut. Constipation was a great problem after the Second World War, and not enough roughage in the diet. Too much refined food. Quote is from the chapter Deuteronomy, I think, pronounced. But this quote just demonstrates this comic irony the narrator uses, because they put this metaphor in saying that history is like a sandwich with the beef. And it's just, they play with the image in the reader's head, and it's just add this comic light to a very serious subject, which is, for example, black humor. The narrator also just use a lot of irony and exaggerate a lot of the situations, which is also a different kind of humorous devices. And this is seen almost through the entire book in different situations Jeanette is going through. There's also a little bit of intertextuality in the text, I would say. For example, there's some different stories where there's a whole half of a chapter just a story about a prince, for example. But the narrator also comes on Beauty and the Beast as an example as well. But yeah, let's talk about at last this symbolism with oranges, because oranges are quite a big symbol in this text. For example, the title is "Oranges are not only fruit," and this can be seen a little bit like life is not always black and white. For example, the mother has a specific way of looking at life. There's a right and there's a wrong. And in this book, she thinks that orange are the only fruit, which also can be seen in the way she, as said, looks at life, because she don't think that you could be anything but straight. And if you look at this little nice thing I made here, you can see that if you say that there are different fruit than oranges, you can also say that there are different sexualities than being straight, which the mother don't think. So therefore, all about the oranges are a way of symbolizing that there's only one way to life. Jeanette's mother also hands out these oranges in different situations. For example, when Jeanette was at the hospital, Jeanette's mother gave her an orange. And here we have a quote, which is, "I started to cry, and my mother looked horrified, and rooting in her handbag, she gave me an orange. I peeled it to comfort myself." And you can see that the mother began to be, scared, and she thought that this is a difficult situation, and therefore she handed this orange to, calm her daughter down. And if we're talking about this, orange is the only fruit, then we can almost say that banana is then a symbol of rejection of homosexuality or just sexuality in general. Because the mother and daughter is given a banana from a lesbian couple, but they reject. And here you can, as I talked about in the beginning, the mother has one way of looking at life, and because this banana represents homosexuality, she therefore rejects it. So yeah. Yeah, now we have reached the end of this audio analysis, and all in all, I can say that this book or novel is very debating about growing up in a different as a specific society and fitting in, and what do you do if you don't fit in. And here we have this very brave character which just stands out and does what you want, but you can also easily end in a situation where this is not possible, where you can't really be who you are. So this novel just shows, you can almost say, the pros and cons by being who you are and really standing out in the society. And there's also so much more that you can, analyze and debate about this novel, which I'm a little bit sad that I didn't get to do. But there's so much the narrator have worked with in this story. But yeah, that was all I had to say. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time, I guess. Bye bye.